On her own wedding day, Clara Whitmore overheard her future mother-in-law whisper something to the family lawyer that sent a chill down her spine. "After the wedding tonight, all of her assets will belong to us." Clara stood behind the dressing room door, still holding a bouquet of white flowers. Her makeup was flawless, but her heart felt as though it had fallen into a bottomless abyss. She believed she was stepping into a fairy tale marriage, a charming husband, a respected family, a secure future after years of loneliness. But Clara had no idea that this arranged marriage had never begun with love. It had begun with a carefully designed plan to seize her fortune. And what none of them expected was that the woman they considered weak had quietly prepared a move that would make their entire family pay the price. Clara Whitmore was 48 years old and the sole heir to the Whitmore Hotel Group, a name that had been respected throughout Charleston for generations. After her father's death, Clara became increasingly withdrawn. She disliked parties. She disliked attention. And most of all, she disliked men who noticed her wealth before they noticed who she truly was. So when Adrian Vale entered her life, everything seemed almost too perfect. He was 52, divorced, polite, calm, attentive, and always seemed to know exactly what Clara needed to hear. He never rushed her. He never asked about money. He never mentioned company shares. Instead, he sat beside her during rainy afternoons, listening as she spoke about her late father, the old family mansion, and the loneliness that few people in high society were willing to admit existed. That patience convinced Clara that she had finally found someone genuine, but later, she realized something important. The most dangerous person is not the one who openly asks how much money you have. The most dangerous person is the one who convinces you to open your heart willingly, then quietly walks into the vault of your life. Adrian's family welcomed Clara with a warmth that almost felt unreal. His mother, Evelyn Vale, constantly held Clara's hand in front of guests and called her God's gift to the family. His sister Melissa never stopped praising Clara's elegance and grace. And Adrian's son, from a previous marriage, Lucas, quickly began calling her the woman who had saved his father from loneliness. Every word sounded sweet. Every smile seemed kind. But Clara gradually noticed something strange. Every conversation within the Vale family, whether it began with the weather, dinner plans, or honeymoon arrangements, somehow ended up revolving around her assets. Who controlled the Whitmore shares? Who held authority over trust accounts? Whether the mansion was owned personally or through the company? What would happen to the estate if Clara died? Adrian would always smile softly and insist they were simply concerned about her well-being. But the more she listened, the less she felt like a bride. She felt like a contract being analyzed clause by clause. 1 week before the wedding, the Vale family's lawyer presented a prenuptial agreement. Adrian sat beside Clara and spoke gently. He claimed it was merely a precaution designed to protect both of them. Clara turned each page carefully. At first glance, the agreement appeared fair, but when she examined it closely, she discovered several highly unusual provisions. If she became mentally incapacitated, Adrian would gain full authority as her legal representative. If she developed serious health problems, the Vale family would have the right to participate in financial decisions. If the marriage lasted longer than 3 years, part of Clara's personal wealth could be transferred into shared marital assets. Clara looked at Adrian. He was still smiling, and it was that smile that made her understand this was not a mistake. This was a trap written in legal language. Clara showed no reaction. She simply said she needed more time to review the documents. That night, she called Martin Hayes, her late father's longtime attorney who had represented the Whitmore family for more than 30 years. After reading the agreement, Martin spoke only one sentence. "Clara, this isn't a marriage. It's a takeover disguised as one." From that day forward, Clara changed, but she made sure nobody noticed. She continued smiling during dress fittings. She continued sitting beside Adrian at dinner. She continued allowing Evelyn to embrace her in front of guests. But behind the scenes, Clara quietly did 3 things. First, she transferred all of her personal assets into a trust protected from marital interference. Second, she asked Martin to investigate every recent transaction connected to the Vale family. Third, she approved the addition of a special clause to the marriage contract. If either party entered the marriage with the intention of seizing assets, manipulating the other psychologically, or concealing financial schemes, all marital benefits would become immediately void. Adrian never read the final version carefully. He was too confident. His family was too. They believed Clara was a lonely woman who was easy to influence and easy to control. What they didn't know was that long before becoming an heiress, Clara had been trained by her father to run an empire. And sometimes, the quietest woman in the room is the one remembering every word everyone says. The wedding took place in a garden covered in white flowers. The guest list was filled with influential people. Local newspapers called it the most luxurious wedding of the summer. Clara walked gracefully in her elegant wedding gown. Adrian looked at her with such tenderness that everyone felt moved. But 30 minutes before the ceremony began, Clara heard Evelyn's voice from the room next door. "After the wedding tonight, all of her assets will belong to us." A man's voice replied, "As long as Adrian keeps her around long enough, 3 years will be more than enough." Then Melissa laughed softly. A lonely woman is always the easiest to control. Clara stood perfectly still. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. Only her hand tightened around the bouquet. The door between the two rooms remained slightly open, and the phone in Clara's hand was recording everything. The ceremony continued. Clara still said yes. Adrian still placed the ring on her finger. The guests still applauded. But during the reception, as Adrian raised a glass to thank everyone, Clara slowly stood up. She announced that she had a wedding gift for the Vale family. The large screen behind the stage lit up. First came images of the marriage contract. Then came the audio recording. Evelyn's voice echoed clearly throughout the ballroom. "After the wedding tonight, all of her assets will belong to us." The room froze. Adrian's face turned pale. Melissa dropped her wine glass. Evelyn struggled to stand but could barely speak. Clara did not shout. She did not accuse. She simply looked at each of them and said, "You were mistaken. I entered this marriage with my heart, but I never entered it without my mind." Martin stepped onto the stage. He announced that under the fraud clause signed by Adrian himself, every financial benefit connected to the marriage was immediately nullified. Not only that, but evidence of the asset theft conspiracy would be forwarded to investigators. Adrian tried to grab Clara's hand. He insisted it was all a misunderstanding. But Clara pulled away. Some misunderstandings make people sad. Some schemes wake them up. Yet the biggest shock was still to come. Martin revealed another document. The Vale family had done something remarkably similar to Adrian's first wife. That woman had lost most of her assets through a carefully orchestrated divorce, then disappeared from high society after being labeled mentally unstable. Clara turned toward Adrian. For the first time, his eyes were no longer gentle. They were empty, cold, and completely exposed. Lucas, Adrian's son, stood up among the guests. Tears filled his eyes as he looked at his father. "My mother wasn't crazy. You pushed her so far that nobody believed her anymore." The entire ballroom fell silent. At that moment, Clara realized this marriage was about more than her money. It was an opportunity for a truth buried for years to finally come into the light. 3 months later, Clara returned to the Whitmore estate. The wedding ring was gone. The false promises were gone. But so was her loneliness. She used part of her fortune to provide legal support for women who had been manipulated through financial marriages. Lucas eventually found his mother. And for the first time in years, she heard her son tell her that he believed her. Clara never considered herself a victim. She simply considered herself someone who woke up before the door finally closed. Because in family drama Reddit stories, the most painful thing is not betrayal itself. It is realizing that the betrayal was carefully prepared behind smiles, loving words, and a contract that seemed completely harmless. If you're watching this dramatic storytelling journey, leave a comment below. Do you think Clara should have called off the wedding immediately, or was allowing everything to unfold until the reception her smartest move? And don't forget to subscribe for more Reddit family drama story content, where hidden family secrets, financial conspiracies, and long-buried truths are finally brought into the light.